no correlation between Meghan Markle pre-Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, correct?
Well, I mean, I've got an open mind on that. I mean, I have got sources in Thailand who have raised this quite independently. I think not even knowing the stories on social media. They're not the sort of people who would have seen any of these stories.
Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Crown and Conflict, a series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. We are living one of them right now. With insight from world-renowned royal experts, we're exploring stories that shook the monarchy and captivated the globe. And currently shaking the monarchy is the Epstein Andrew scandal, and a new book that we've talked about on this program before. Andrew Lownie's entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. uh, Convenient timing, Andrew. I mean, is your book the domino that starts this fall in the last
Well,
few weeks?
people have very kindly said, I think it kind of loosened things, and I think it then emboldened the press to begin to investigate Andrew. But clearly, Trump's decision not to release the Epstein files, people coming, the victims coming forward to talk on Capitol Hill, the leaked emails from, I think, presumably the Senate Oversight Committee, which have been covered here, showing that both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had lied about when they cut off contact with Epstein. And the former Miss Switzerland saying that she had been that Andrew been used as bait to get her to meet Trump in 1993, 6 years before Andrew claimed to have met Epstein. And then allegations here that Andrew was involved with alleged Chinese spies. All those things have built. And I think really the real tipping point was Virginia Giuffre's memoir. I think clearly we had the decision last Friday before the memoir came out, but bits have been leaked out. People clearly were worried about what it might say. It clearly personalized the thing. Here was a poor woman who had suffered terribly at the hands of many men, but including Prince Andrew, who'd committed suicide and actually giving it from the horse's mouth. And I think at that point, the palace felt they needed to do something. And the problem was that it didn't do enough. And so the whole thing then became, I think, really then began to become a tsunami as people really got really angry that there was this continued cover up of Andrew's activities, which is certainly something I found in my research.
That's right. I mean, you discussed that throughout your book. Am I giving the palace too much credit to assume that maybe someone was astute enough to realize that things could get worse? And Friday's voluntary, I'm giving up my titles, I'm giving up my honors, was just level one in a tier. And the palace realized, okay, this is a quick way to shut this down. If things get worse, then we can take it to Parliament and strip him formally, legally of those titles. But it gives us one extra step that we can take, because it does seem like they're kind of limited as to what they can do beyond, the police getting involved.
Well, I would disagree. I think this was just a classic fudge. This was a sort of smoke and mirrors. This was an attempt to do a bit of window dressing and hope that that would shut down the story. I don't think there was any plan B. I think the plan B came when they realized that public opinion was way ahead of what the palace were doing, very much like when Diana died
Mm.
and the royal family were forced to address that with the Queen talking to the nation and the flag being put at half-mast. So I think they've had to reassess things over the weekend, particularly with a lot of media commentators talking about were raising questions about the accountability and transparency of the royal family itself. And I think they could see that suddenly what was a problem about one rogue royal was becoming criticism of the whole family. And so it began to snowball. And there have plenty of options. Queen Marguerite of Denmark actually just took away the titles of her four grandchildren. Charles could do that under letters patent. There is a lot of support for in Parliament now for some sort of legislation to deprive him of these titles, because in the end it made no difference to him. He was no longer a duke; he was just a prince. He was still living in Royal Lodge. And so I think they've suddenly realized they need to do something a bit more drastic. And the problem is now, the problem has got worse because they didn't do enough on Friday. And so they've really made it more difficult for themselves. But I think there are lots of options. I mean, they're now talking about a proper investigation into how he was allowed to get to Royal Lodge on these very favorable terms. It wasn't put out to the wider market. This is Crown Estate property. It's owned by the British taxpayer. And so a lot of these secretive deals, I think, are beginning to be examined. There's also, of course, one with the sale of Sunninghill with the Sunninghill Trust. And then we come to the third thing that you've mentioned, investigations. And I do think that people are now talking quite openly about him being investigated and possibly charged and about for a number of things. I think the case on the sex trafficking is more difficult. That's been looked at by the Met 3 times. I think, given the law at the time, I think it would be very hard to bring a conviction there. But I do think that the misconduct in public office does carry quite a lot of chance of success. We have 2 cases of this. One is clearly the leaked email the other day saying that he had put pressure on his protection officer to basically smear Virginia Giuffre. He was trading in information he shouldn't have had. So there are data protection questions there. I think also his role as special trade envoy, which has kind of been forgotten about because of the Epstein allegations, he did show himself to have actually, I think, basically monetized his royal position to make money personally for himself. And a large part of the book looks at that. And people, I think, need to look at some of these stories, how he was making money, the story of the Greek water company in Kazakhstan, the Selman Turk case, where there was 1.3 million pounds that went to the Yorks they couldn't explain, etc. So, yes, I think if there's going to be some proper scrutiny now and the press have got the bit between the teeth, then we will begin to see something happening. And we could potentially see a member of the royal family on trial. And I think there are some good grounds for him to be convicted. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think he's very much on the ropes. This is, for me, the biggest crisis in the history of the royal family since the abdication, because that was the story about one man's love for another woman and giving up the throne. This is about financial corruption by a senior royal and how the institution itself supported that, and actually suggestions of maybe wider culpability within the royal family. I mean, everyone knew this was an accident to happen. Sorry, I should let you talk.
Oh, no, no, no. I did have a question. I was curious to know what you know about Prince William's thoughts on Andrew, because for the most part, I don't talk much about Prince Andrew. I know he likes to horseback ride around the Windsor estate, and he determines what planes are he looks up and determines what planes are above him. He's an odd character. I recently did cover him because Prince William was giving him a death stare during the Duchess of Kent's funeral, and it just seemed completely inappropriate, and you wondered why Andrew lacked that common sense, the way you're supposed to behave at a sacred ceremony. But I've seen criticism of Prince William that he hasn't handled this Prince Andrew thing. What power would Prince William have to handle the Andrew problem, or is all the power in King Charles's corner?
No, I think much of this has come from Prince William. I think he's actually stiffened the sinews of his father, who is much more sort of collegiate and clearly has sentimental attachments here to his younger brother. I think he probably gave an undertaking to their mother he would take care of him. William is looking at it in a much more colder way. What is this doing for the monarchy that I'm going to inherit? So I think he's been much tougher. It has to come from Charles. I think it also has to come from Parliament. I mean, the two work together through the Cabinet Secretary and the Queen's Private Secretary, and I think it also has to come through, the police, the law enforcement agencies. I mean, there again is a case for the National Crime Agency here to look at what Andrew might have been up to as a special trade envoy. But I do think it's a good point you raised that the Duchess of Kent's funeral was another point where people saw how shameless Andrew was, how inappropriate his behavior at a funeral, how he tried to hijack the occasion and tried to cozy up to William as if they were best friends, thinking that would be a wonderful photo opportunity. And of course, as you say, that he got the death stare, and it was actually counterproductive. But he doesn't have this great ability to read the room. He has very little empathy for anyone, which we've seen clearly in the lack of any sort of contrition over his behavior with Virginia Giuffre. But I think that was another turning point. I mean, people are absolutely fed up with Andrew. I get the feeling the royal family are fed up, and they're quite happy to throw him under the bus to save themselves.
True or false, incognito mode makes you invisible on the internet. The answer is actually false. Most people have no idea, but your browsing history can still be monitored and even recorded unless you use today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN reroutes your internet traffic through a secure encrypted tunnel, protecting your data from hackers, advertisers, and even your internet service provider. Depending on where you live, ISPs can actually be required to log your activity, or even worse, legally sell your browsing history. ExpressVPN makes sure that just doesn't happen. It also lets you change your online location so you can access geolocked content on streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney Plus, and BBC iPlayer. With servers in over 100 countries, you can unlock thousands of new shows and movies from around the globe. Setup is simple, just one click to connect, and it works across all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, even your smart TV. Speeds are blazing fast so you can stream in HD with zero buffering. I've used ExpressVPN while traveling and it gives me real peace. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/Kinsey to get up to 4 extra months free. That's expressvpn.com/Kinsey. Speaking of Prince William and Prince Andrew, there you just mentioned the idea of an investigation into Royal Lodge. How is he capable of maintaining this estate? Why does he have the perks of not having to pay rent for 20 years? Those are some pretty legitimate questions being asked. I was asked what I thought he should do, and I said exile, go to Dubai, go anywhere, just get away. I think that Prince William, who's trying to make Windsor Castle his or not Windsor Castle, but the Windsor area his forever home for his family, doesn't want to move into Buckingham Palace. I think that he would loathe the idea of having someone that attracts so much negative attention so close to his family.
Absolutely. I think, the idea of him going horseback riding just down the road, the optics are bad, and he doesn't like him personally or professionally, so he wouldn't want him there. I think we have to be fair about the lease. I mean, this is a repairing lease. He paid £1 million initially, and agreed £7.5 million to renovate it. So in some ways, that was his rent. Um, and that's the problem. We can't get it. He can't get out on that basis. I mean, all one can do is to persuade him voluntarily to go and to say that the optics on this look bad. It's very bad for the reputation of the family and the monarchy. And if you care about that, then you should go. Um, but he's very stubborn. It's the last sort of redoubt that he has in terms of his links with the royal family. He does feel he deserves, as the son of the Queen, to live in a 30-room mansion. And it's going to be quite difficult to get him out unless Charles throws lots of money at him and puts some pressure on him, perhaps through questions raised about what will happen to his children. I think that's the vulnerability there. But the worry is that Andrew will spill the beans, will collaborate with someone to write a memoir, and that's what I think they're worried about. But where he goes to, again, an interesting question. He's got a palace in Abu Dhabi. I think he probably wants to go somewhere where there isn't an extradition treaty. But Dubai is, I think, where King Juan Carlos has gone, and there are very interesting parallels between the two. Basically, in Spain, they got round this problem by he just leaving. And I think the other interesting question is, will Sarah Ferguson stick with Andrew? She's hung in there because clearly her cachet as it comes from being associated with the royal family. But if, she's no longer a duchess and they're no longer in Royal Lodge, I wonder if she's going to meet her own independent career somewhere else like Switzerland. So there are a lot of possible changes going on. And of course, we've also got the question of the culpability of the daughters. Everyone has been presenting them as innocents in this story, that they can't be blamed for the sins of the parents. But there's increasing evidence coming forward about their own activities, business activities, the way that they perhaps have used charity to cover some of their business activities. So again, a lot of investigation going on there. Um, and
That's
so, I
interesting
mean,
that you just that you say that because I literally was just saying we can't blame them for the sins of their father. You know, they're good girls as far as we know, and time heals all wounds. Maybe inevitably they could step up to support Prince William as a king when we're no longer associating with them with their father. But you're saying things are surfacing that could inevitably put their moral compass or at least their relationship with the monarchy in jeopardy.
yes, I think there are some considerations there. I mean, they do have a sort of slightly arm's length relationship. They've been given roles within as mentors, for example. I think that with the King's 35 under 35, and he seems to be very fond of them, and they're very well brought up, polite girls. But I suppose it's not surprising that they perhaps brought up with those two parents have a slightly different, as you say, moral compass. And I think the danger of the royal family embracing them too closely, too quickly, is that if things emerge, that the danger is of collateral damage to the monarchy. So my advice is, keep your distance. As you say, time's a great healer. If they keep their noses clean and do great works, then they shouldn't be tainted by their parents. And we remember, for example, Sophie Wessex was caught in a sting operation. Everyone's forgotten that, and everyone sees her now as a very important and valued member of the royal family. So, there is these things can change. Um, but there is a problem. We've got a slimmed down monarchy. The danger is, in the end, it will just be King William, Catherine, and their three children.
Mm-hmm.
And there is talk here in Britain of actually not just removing Andrew's princely title, but the titles of Eugenie and Beatrice, um, Harry and Meghan, and their children, and that the only people who have titles are those in direct line of succession. So, everything seems to be up for grabs at the moment, and these changes are literally happening overnight. As I say, they're snowballing, and places that things that have been discussed, particularly in places like Parliament and the media, that wouldn't have been contemplated even a week ago, are now being taken quite seriously. So this really is, as you say, a real turning point in royal history.
I mean, I every day I wake up and something new. I'm afraid to comment on it because I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to come? I mean, me talking about the how Beatrice and Eugenie are such angels, and then I talk to you, and I'm like, oh, new developments. Got to change direction here. In Entitled, you note that what most annoys Prince Andrew is his loss of royal status and identity. I mean, look, today I'm sure that that annoyance has been heightened immensely. How important do you believe the title, uniforms, and public recognition were to his behavior and decisions in the past? Was it the status more than the duty that defined the Prince Andrew we grew to know?
Absolutely. I think you've hit it in one. What he liked was the dressing up, wearing the garter robes, going on the balcony in Buckingham Palace, the adoration of the crowds. And that was one of the problems that, when he was sent to do things, he didn't actually do them. He didn't want to do the VIP line. He wanted to go and talk to the pretty girl. He broke short of commitments to go off partying and stuff or play golf. So he was driven by private pleasure rather than public duty. And that's one of the tropes of the crown, in some ways, the division between the two types of royals, the Princess Margaret's or the Duke of Windsor's, and the others who kind of, just solidly like the Queen, get on with the job, or Prince Philip. Um, so absolutely, he will be absolutely devastated because he sees, having a 30-room mansion was what shaped his identity. He gave I think a very revealing statement, I think when he got married, and he said to Sarah Ferguson, "I'm a prince first, a naval officer second, and a husband third." And on that basis, you don't see perhaps a marriage prospering. Um, so yeah, I mean, he believes in the divine right of kings. He believes in this droit de seigneur. I mean, how else can you explain this? Basically, this young 17-year-old girl, the same age as his daughters, being trafficked to him for his wicked ways. It's just so sleazy. And I think this Virginia Giuffre book will really put the nail in the coffin of his reputation, because here we have it, this first-hand, pretty, pretty distasteful sort of and soulless sort of sexual engagements that he has.
I've had two outlets ask me to like regurgitate what I've read in that book. And I'm like, as a Southern Baptist, I don't really want to go into great detail. I think I don't want to go there. So you're absolutely right. It's just, it's hard to read. And
Yes, it's harrowing.
you don't even want to process it. Your eyes just go over it and you try to move on. And I have said a couple of times too that I'm so grateful that the Queen's not here to have to see some of those paragraphs and words. I think legal would probably require me to say, though, that the prince says that he is innocent of everything written about him. Hey guys, who doesn't want energy, metabolic, immune, and skin support? I want to introduce you to Peak, a luxury brand transforming wellness with the absolute best, rare, and precious plants, cutting edge ingredients, and formulations rooted in traditional wisdom. Their science backed botanicals, minerals, and supplements support sustained energy, metabolic function, immune health, and radiant skin, making it easy to live each day with vitality. One of their newest essentials, the Deep Hydration Protocol, is a two-part drinkable skincare system that keeps your body and skin hydrated while promoting better sleep. Made without sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors, and crafted with natural ingredients for a clean, spa-like taste you can feel good about. Daily use supports hydration, glowing skin, improved sleep, and sustained energy. In the morning, I like to use BT Fountain. This is their beauty electrolyte. But in the evening, I reach for RE Fountain, the calming electrolyte. It contains this gentle form of magnesium that eases tension and helps me get deep, restful sleep without feeling groggy the next day. Wake up rested, stay hydrated all day long. Get 20% off for life, a complimentary gift, and explore Peak's clean, pure ingredient products at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. This is hydration redefined. Try it and glow from the inside out. Now back to the show. All right, you describe how Prince Andrew's ties with Jeffrey Epstein and other controversial figures not only damages his reputation, but may have exposed intelligence vulnerabilities. What are the implications for the monarchy and for Andrew's own security and legacy, given those claims? That's pretty intimidating.
Yes, no, it's worrying. And I think that was one of the reasons for the statement on Friday. I mean, the push also came from the government, who are worried about some of the allegations about the Chinese spies. I mean, the Chinese have been cozying up to particularly to Andrew for some time. I mean, particularly using trade as the vulnerability. I mean, his argument is he's fostering trade between the two countries, and that's what they would say. But of course, they were, getting very close to him. And the problem was that there were lots of these honey traps. Every time he went somewhere, a pretty girl would turn up, or a prostitute, and he would be filmed. And so that was happening in, sorry to tell a Southern Baptist this, but it was happening in Libya and China, the Middle East, Kazakhstan, Russia. They all have material on Andrew. And I don't know what pressure they could put on him, but clearly he probably had sensitive material. I mean, he'd worked in the Ministry of Defense. He'd been a trade envoy dealing with arms deals. He probably had gossip to do with the royal family. Who knows? I mean, he was involved in some quite sensitive business deals as a trade envoy. So he would have been a useful person to compromise. And this is the big question, what has he said? What have people got? How is it being used? Um, uh, they hide behind national security, for example, if you want to get access to records. And yet what's become very clear is that he placed his own security and the security of others very much at risk. He would not let the policemen at the North Gate of Buckingham Palace know the names of his visitors. Many of whom were just escorts who came just for the evening. And so they were very concerned. They didn't know who was in the building and their background. And, there had been assassination plots against him. So, you know, there seem to be two rules, one for anyone else using the national security to get access to anything. And here he was, and Harry did the same, gave away the sort of the whole plan of Buckingham Palace, for someone who would know how to break in or to mount an assassination attempt. So there seem to be these double standards. What applies to outsiders doesn't apply to the royals. But, we are at this historic moment. Will a member of the royal family be put on trial? And could he go to prison? I mean, this is something that no one has ever contemplated before.
I know. I mean, I've been called by, there's a legal channel here that just plays courtroom feed all day long. And they're like, well, we want to talk about Prince Andrew. I'm like, you want to talk about Prince Andrew? That's insane that we could be witnessing history in the making and seeing somebody held accountable for common sense. No, you can't use your government funded bodyguard to dig up dirt to try to discredit somebody that's making accusations against you. I feel like that is you would just automatically assume that is not, it goes against the rules. You
Yes,
mentioned,
exactly.
go
Well,
ahead. Yeah.
malfeasance in public office,
Yeah.
exactly. But I
Yeah.
mean, we're sending people to prison here for hate crime or or tweets on Twitter, and yet here is someone with a whole series of quite serious allegations who has no one has actually looked into them.
Oh, all right. Well, you mentioned Royal Lodge a couple of times, but can you explain to me? Some commentators suggest this is his last status symbol. Do you see any circumstance under which the property arrangement might be renegotiated or ended? We talked about Keir Starmer going, okay, yeah, we'll investigate it, but worst case scenario, why would he be asked to leave?
Well, I've seen the lease, and actually I've put it to property specialists and to lawyers, and I think it's pretty watertight. And I'd be interested to see if papers like, for example, the Times, which got the lease originally, and in fact supplied it to me, will find anything. But at the moment, he had good lawyers on it, and at the moment there's no reason that he has to go. Um, so, I mean, this is what is frustrating everyone, that it's up to him voluntarily. I mean, short of basically sticking a lot of sort of rodents in the house in the hope of driving him out, there's not much you can do. I think he has the money to keep it up, which is, of course, the big criteria. I think the big question is where is he getting this money? And this, of course, has opened up the whole debate about royal finances and how opaque they are, how we have no idea how they pass money down the line to each other. Almost everyone in this country has to publish their will, except members of the royal family, even quite obscure members, and that seems an anomaly in a modern democratic society. Um, and there, were great arguments a few years ago for a royal register. So all MPs here have a parliamentary register. I don't know what the state is in the States, but you have to declare what your business interests are, how you've made money, even if you've had gifts. And I think if we had that for the royal family, and if it was properly followed through by them, then that would at least show that they were making some effort to be transparent about any of the benefits they got as for being royals.
Um, do you agree that it's his last status symbol?
Yes, I think it is. There's nothing there. I mean, Knights of the Garter, he clearly relished. I mean, he signed these emails, KG. Um, but and he liked dressing up in the uniform. But yeah, there's nothing left for him now. As he is, as you say, a man who likes watching plains land, who likes listening to country music, who has very limited intellectual hinterland. He plays golf, he goes for horse rides, and he goes shooting. And that's about it. And that, is a pretty limited life, even for a man who is retired.
Um, I feel like this is a pretty heavy question. And honestly, I think if I would have asked you this a month ago, it would have been a different answer. But what effect does this scandal or these scandals, because it just feels like a growth, a tumor that continues to grow, have on the broader institution, the monarchy, especially given the changing public attitude towards accountability, transparency, privilege. You touch on needing greater transparency in your book.
Absolutely. No, I think, I mean, that's a very good analogy, the tumor. And the tumor has grown very, very quickly over the last few days, and it is infecting the rest of the body. And if they don't catch this cancer quickly and decisively and cut it out, they are going to find that themselves are being criticized and in trouble. And already we're getting a lot of editorial comments in the papers about the wider royal family. We're getting clearly a lot of comments from the public about it, with some pretty harsh comments about King Charles. So they must be worried that they're going to be collateral damage and drawn into this. And this is why Friday's statement was so silly. They had an opportunity to really deal with this problem. I mean, they could have dealt with this problem years ago. I mean, he lost his military patronages. He's stripped of his HRH many years ago, but that's as far as they went, hoping that that would do the trick. And I think the public accepted that. I think there's now a new sense of in the public that there needs to be change. There's much more skepticism about the elites and how they preserve their privileges. And I think William realizes that. I wouldn't say we're at the step of a revolution, but I just get the sense of the same sort of factors that were happening before the Russian Revolution and the French Revolution, that came slightly out of the blue and moved very, very quickly.
Yeah, I look at this and I just think that before the Duchess of Kent's funeral, I don't think that I had severed Prince Andrew with the working members of the British royal family. And there were a few times where I was asked to comment on his presence at church. And I think the first couple of times it was Christmas, or I would say, are we really going to criticize this man for seeking God? Of all of them, this might be the guy that should be seeking a little bit of Jesus. And then I just the idea of how I don't know how to define him at the Duchess of Kent's funeral, but it was an arrogance, I guess, an arrogance. Just be humble, be sad in the moment. Just show any sort of natural reaction versus whatever this is. And that's when I started to be able to no longer shake this separation between Prince Andrew and the royal family. And I wonder if they really should have cut him off from the church service. They were in a really difficult position with Prince Philip and the Queen dying, so quickly, so closely to one another. Fergie has cancer. So then, of course, they're going to want to show empathy and compassion because Fergie has cancer. Then we find out the king and Catherine have cancer. So, of course, then we're all going to want to look like a united front. We've also got Meghan and Harry wreaking havoc in the United States. So they want to look like a big, strong family because it discredits everything Harry and Meghan are saying in America. I have a hard time faulting them for some of these errors, even though I see that there are strategic errors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, no, I think, you can see the narrative playing out, that in some ways, Charles is wanting to bring the family together. No one wants a family divided. There's sympathy, as you say, for Fergie because of her cancer. And she has been loyal and supportive of Andrew. So, bring her back inside the tent also. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. So there was a sort of logic to the strategy, but I think sometimes we find that things completely change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, they're in a difficult position there, in terms of how to deal with this. But you're absolutely right. He has this inability to read the room. And because he's so self-centered and arrogant, really can't understand what should have done. I mean, the strange thing is that Charles does seem to have allowed him to have a police escort all the way from Windsor when other royals were turning up under their own steam. That seems strange, someone who's not a working royal. And he should have just quietly been told to go in through there was a side entrance at Westminster Abbey and slip in at the back. Instead, he came in through the back of it, straight up the centre aisle to a seat in the front row. Now, again, this was the funeral of his mother's cousin's wife. This is not a very close relationship. I mean, it was a funeral for the Kent family. And here he was hijacking it for his own sort of publicity purposes, So, but I think that is a very important moment because I think, a lot of people don't see him. They just see a picture of him driving a car, riding a horse. And here he was grimacing, she was gurning, enjoying their moment in the spotlight. And suddenly people got a real sense of the sort of people they were.
Right. Yeah. And it was not pretty. There are three, I don't know, climaxes that everyone seems to be discussing: lifelong retirement, relocation abroad, quietly pursuing some sort of charity role from afar, away from the limelight, to rehabilitate, maybe to rehabilitate his legacy. I don't know why he would do that. He doesn't seem like that type of person. Do any of those stand out to you as a possibility?
No, I mean, well, some of them do. I don't think he's going to seek redemption through charity work like John Perfumer. That's just not the nature of his character. He doesn't accept that he's done anything wrong. He feels hard done by. So that's not. He had plenty of opportunity over the last 10 years to apologize, show some contrition, etc. I mean, it's interesting that even on Friday he made no even reference to the victims.
And
Exile.
why couldn't he just say, I'm sorry to my family for all of the embarrassment I've caused. I'm sorry to I'm sorry to my brother who's currently dealing with cancer for all of the drama I've attracted. I honestly, if he would have just said that, I would have felt a little bit of kindness towards him. But it's the
Yep.
fact that he refuses to acknowledge the pain of the victims, that, he just says, I never met her. I never met her. It's okay to say, but I know you had a relationship. You clearly had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and that was horrible. I'm so sorry that you experienced that. Any sort of compassion or empathy whatsoever to anyone.
I agree. I agree. And what must have Virginia Giuffre felt, when he said, "I don't remember this woman," how, the defining moment of her life, which I think probably had a factor in her death. And here is someone who is so contemptuous and casual that he doesn't even remember her. Um, yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary. So that's not going to be an option. Exile, I think, is a possible option. That's what happened with the Duke of Windsor. And I think if there are tax benefits, that would be pretty good. He can operate under the radar in the Middle East. So I think that is a pretty strong possibility. And I can't remember what the other one was. I think
Lifelong
going to prison.
retirement, which is just kind of like, just,
Oh, yes.
I kind of think that that's exile. The only time we ever hear about him is when he's golfing or on a horse and somebody manages to snap a photo of him. I just think that Windsor's the worst possible place for him because it's a constant reminder of this stain.
Carbuncle.
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
stain. It
I agree. So people talk about him going to the Castle of May and Balmoral. I just don't see that happening. I think there's a possibility. I mean, Switzerland, I think, is a strong possibility because he's close then to his daughter in Portugal. He's close to the other daughter in the Cotswolds. He can, I mean, he can't go. He can go skiing there, which he likes. They're great golf courses. There's full of very rich people that he likes. So I mean, and Fergie, I think, is very keen on that. They were going to send their daughters to school there. So I think that Switzerland's quite a strong possibility as well as the Middle East. But I do think, as you say, Britain, whether it's England or Scotland, is very unlikely. The family will want him a long way away from British papers and media coverage. And ideally, the more authoritarian the state, the more the control of the press, the happier probably they will be.
I have two more questions for you, and then you have to run. Um,
Right.
A, should Prince Harry and Meghan Markle be concerned for their titles? Because I seriously felt, this is a larger discussion between us, but you are who you associate with. And I think that that's why Prince Andrew, fell apart. Guilt by association. Even if he says he's innocent of all this stuff, we still see those emails. You're my, supreme friend. We're in this together emails. Harry
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Meghan, Tyler Perry, accused of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Lily's godfather. I could list a bunch of other, Ellen DeGeneres loses her job over bully allegations. Harry and Meghan are running with people that don't elevate them and, in fact, bring them down. So I wonder if they should be concerned about the loss of their titles. And then B, has there been any progress regarding Harry threatening you over your book?
Well, I mean, to do the Harry one first, no, I've not had a single thing. I mean, he leaked a story to the press without even coming to us. We responded. My lawyers responded. We put in a line in the book saying that he denies these allegations. Remember, recollections can vary, and that was the end of it. We never heard another thing. So that's dead. But I do think, that talking to the future, that William has talked about not having, for example, Harry to the coronation. I think there is a very good chance that actually they will take the opportunity of this new legislation to strip Andrew of his role as a prince, to use that to get rid of titles for all the others. So that would, Harry and Meghan's family and Eugenie and Beatrice, and that kind of in one go. It doesn't look like it's personal. It looks like a general clearing up, but I think it does deal with some potential problems down the road. So that I think might happen, and I do think that we're in a transitional stage with William and Charles. I think Charles is letting William call the shots a lot more. Um, because he accepts that he may come to the throne rather sooner than everyone expected, and William has a completely different concept of the monarchy. So, yes, I think we're going to see some big changes over the next few years, even if Charles remains as king.
And you talked about this evolution. You're still getting new information. I know you studied it in the past. No correlation between Meghan Markle pre Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, correct?
Well, I mean, I've got an open mind on that. I mean, I have got sources in Thailand who have raised this quite independently. I think not even knowing the stories on social media, they're not the sort of people who would have seen any of these stories. Now, they've picked up something in Thailand. I don't think the pictures on the boat, this was with Kelly Hooper and with Jenny Frost and others, those are not Mark. I don't think that's Marcus Anderson. But there are interesting questions. I mean, David Boyes suggesting he would call Meghan to give testimony, and it would explain quite a lot of different things, which are a bit of a mystery now. So never say never. I mean, quite often I was, reluctant to put something in because it didn't stand up, and then I actually found evidence supported, or someone else found evidence that supported what I found. Who knows? I mean, I think the great thing is, they're always, talking on these sort of programs, there are often people who listen to them and come forward with a story. I mean, I got a really good story from one podcast where I just mentioned Fergie's links with Epstein, and a woman said, "Well, I was a dog walker. I used to pass Epstein's flat in 66th Street, and I used to see Fergie coming out of it in 2014. So years after she'd said she'd cut contact. And that's brilliant. I would never have come across that woman if she hadn't come forward. So I think the dream is always, that someone might have stories and I might be prepared to share them.
I just quoted you saying that too. I think today, I think I said Andrew Lownie says Fergie was still staying with Epstein years after she said she cut off contact. So that is amazing the way that works. Obviously, if any of the viewers are watching, they should let us know in the comments if they have any of those stories.
That'd be amazing.
Plans to update entitled, how quickly? Because obviously you have to, right?
Yes, I mean the paperback would come out next summer. The plan is to just bring out a paperback, but to have it revised, possibly with new photos as well. I've got a lot of new stuff. Got about 60 pages of new material. So
Wow,
it's
that's
still
amazing.
some it's still some way off. So I mean, hopefully that we will. I will try and add some new material. I've got a Substack column, so I'm trying to incorporate some of the material I didn't use in the hardback that isn't going into the paperback for my Substack subscribers. And I'm always willing to share some of the new research with people like you. It's always really nice to chat.
And can you tell me what your Substack name is? I'll go subscribe as soon as we're done talking.
Gosh, I think it's just put Andrew Lownie Substack and it
Okay,
comes up.
perfect.
So that's the advantage of having an unusual name.
Exactly. All right. Well, Andrew Lownie entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. It's available now. Read it if you haven't. It'll get you up to date on all of this craziness, just so you can feel like you're a little bit closer to having the full story as it continues to evolve. But thank you for getting us completely up to date on everything going on. And we'll continue to watch your coverage on this. What do they call it? A fluid situation on the
Right.
news?
Yes. Very fluid. Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you
Well,
so much
thank
for
you.
your
Always
time
lovely
today.
to chat to you.
Thank you.
And talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Well, we want to know what you think. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching.